I took Julia to the rugby club on Friday night for her hen party. She had a really elegant appearance. She had on a blouse and good jeans. She probably picked that dress because she was aware of my lingering trust difficulties. After everything that has transpired, I do have faith in her, but she attempted to allay a very small concern. She told me that she didn't expect it to be late, but that if I was busy, either Anne or Jane's husband could give her a ride home. I told her that was fine. If either of them decided to come home early and she wanted to, they could give her a ride. I was trying to show some of the trust I actually have, but let her know that I would prefer to pick her up myself. I had done some work at the rugby club a couple of weeks ago and wanted to talk to Jeff, who ran the club, to make sure everything was going well. Her co-worker, Anne, from the office, had a niece, Kelsey, who was getting married to her longtime boyfriend, Graham. They had been living together for the last 6 months or so. He was one of the young guys who worked in the factory at Barstow's Engineering. He was a nice guy, worked hard, was quite intelligent. Exactly the kind of guy we should be holding out for. I planned to try to get him on the service team. He was a good machine operator and seemed to understand how machines work. He and Kelsey are getting married next Saturday. Tomorrow night, Graham will be having his bachelor party at the rugby club. I've been invited along with most of the factory staff, even Philip Barstow, the boss's son. I got the call at about 9:30, a little earlier than I expected. Julia asked if I could take Anne and Jane home because they weren't keen to stay either. Relations with the youngsters were getting a bit out of hand. I got there pretty quickly and went inside to pick them up. When I got there, Jeff told me that they were in the back room, a large room in the part of the club they rented for weddings, funerals, and anything else that needed a large room with a bar. For some reason, it was known as the banquet room. This banquet hall was booked for the Bachelorette party, and everything seemed to be going well. I asked him about the work I had done for him and if there were any problems with it. But he said everything seemed to be working fine. But he didn't check anything, just gave me a weird look, even though he didn't seem to have any reason to. Just then, the girls came out of the reception hall and Julia came up to me and kissed me. Anne and Jane smiled and thanked me for agreeing to give them a ride home. I asked them, "What's going on there?" "Lots of drinking and stuff. They have some strippers and that's not my type," Anne said. Jane added, "Nothing has happened yet, but I don't think some of the things they joke about would pass the husband or boyfriend test." I was going to have a beer and another chat with Jeff about work, but the girls seemed very anxious to get home. As we were leaving, Adam's girlfriend Dawn ran up to us and asked if we'd give her a ride home too. She looked a little flushed and was very quiet as she sat in the back seat of the car. Saturday night, there was a line of men in the banquet hall. It was actually quite civilized, just men drinking beer, chatting nonsense, and playing snooker. Graham's future father-in-law was there, Kelsey's brother Harry, and most of the factory staff, including John, Adam, and Chris from my team, who had recently left my team to take up sales positions after the previous staff had quit in a hurry. It was nice to get together in a friendly atmosphere. However, it got a little weird when Adam found me and told me he had discovered a pair of women's underwear tucked behind one of the seat backs. I just wondered what he was doing checking the seat backs. And never mind that several pints of Green King IPA had been drunk, but I managed to hide that information and lose another pound to Chris at snooker. In the early evening, I tried to talk to Jeff about the work I'd done for him. I could see he was busy, but also seemed to be avoiding me. Never mind. I'll talk to him later, I thought. Then, around midnight, everything seemed to change. By then, most of us were pretty much in full swing, but all of a sudden Graham was out of the game. We just assumed he'd had too much to drink, so the future father-in-law drove him home. We finished around 1 o'clock in the morning. Jeff was still avoiding me. Kelsey wanted to do a rehearsal wedding breakfast like she'd seen on TV. No one was really interested in it, especially Graham. Only Kelsey's father was a little concerned about the expense, but he said he would do anything for his princess, and if she wanted that rehearsal, she could have it. Graham didn't agree with that, and that was the end of it. But then, suddenly, on the Monday after the stag party, Graham changed his mind, saying that it might be a good idea to practice since a lot of people aren't used to getting up and performing. and we agreed to that. Although we couldn't do the whole thing completely as there were only the main actors, you know, the parents of the wedding couple, the bridesmaids, and there were quite a few of them. And the best man, John, whose wife, Lisa, was the main bridesmaid, the vicar, and the ticket takers. That's where Adam and I showed up, all with our partners. Kelsey's dad had booked a place at the rugby club for 5 o'clock on Friday night. At least it would save Julia from cooking. Plus, I could have a couple beers and we could chat about stuff without disturbing anyone because of the upcoming wedding. The wedding reception was to be held in the reception hall of the rugby club, so it wasn't hard to arrange for Friday night and for most of us to attend. It will be a bit exciting for the club, but they are used to it. Graham seemed a bit subdued throughout the week, probably due to pre-wedding nerves. I tried to find Jeff again on Friday, but he wasn't around. It was his day off before the big day tomorrow. After the meal, Graham got up and talked a little about what they expected to happen the next day. He said he just wanted to practice getting up and speaking in front of people. The best man, John, stood up and mumbled a few words, saying he would save his speech for tomorrow. He didn't want to give anything away, and he didn't have many jokes to waste today. Graham's father-in-law stood up, welcoming him to the family, and laughed. All tomorrow. Graham then asked if Kelsey wanted to say a few words, but she declined. That's when it all started. "Well, I have a few words," Graham said. "I've been really busy thinking about what to say at this practice, and I wanted to save my real speech for tomorrow. However, I thought I should ask a few questions." His voice sounded very confident, as if he had practiced and didn't need practice. "What would my dear future wife say if I had a good time with a stripper at my bachelor party?" There was a general murmur in the room. Graham threw his hands up in the air and smiled. "Don't worry, I didn't do it. My future father-in-law can confirm it because he took pound 5 off me playing snooker, and I intend to win it back in the near future." This provoked laughter, and we could see some people visibly relax. Graham continued, "Marriages. As I look around, I see that marriages are built on love, trust, understanding, and communication, and I see a lot of that around this table. I'm glad you're all here. I'd like to ask all those men who think they are married to a gorgeous, sweet woman they want to be with for the rest of their lives to stand up." All the men stood up, as you might expect. But I wondered where this was going. Julia looked up at me and smiled, but the smile didn't touch her eyes. "Gentlemen, please have a seat." The men sat down. "Ladies, please stand if you are married to the man you love and wish to spend the rest of your days with him." All the married women stood up, but there were a few nervous looks among them. Many women with partners stood up too. There was a strange undertone to it all. I felt like something was about to happen, and the shit was about to hit the fan. Looking at Lisa, who was standing next to her husband John, the best man, Graham said, "If you love your husband, why would you do that to him?" The large flat-screen TV at the back of the room came to life. A picture of Lisa standing on all fours with a man entering her appeared, but we couldn't see the man. The picture was cropped, but it was obvious that Lisa was having sex. An uproar went up. Graham raised his voice, blocking out the general noise. "And I don't see a condom used, so I hope you didn't have sex with her last week. You never know what you might catch." Lisa shrieked, covered her face with her hands, and ran out. John followed her. He yelled something, but we couldn't hear exactly what it was. It was probably the word whore. Graham put his hands up. "Right now we can't go on like this. Please sit down and remain calm." It seemed to me that Graham was extremely calm. I figured there was more to it, and quickly looked around the room, as did many other people. I think some people wanted to leave, but others had an unhealthy curiosity about where this was all going, and some wondered how far it would all go. I didn't know Graham very well, but I thought we were about to find out. Eventually, things calmed down, and worried exclamations were heard around the table. Julia squeezed my hand tightly. Graham continued, "I have a question for you. Now, if you were John, what would you do with Lisa? Would you forgive her?" If he did forgive her, would you consider him weak? If he divorced her, would you think he was harsh on her because of one night? What are your views on that? There was silence for a while. He let the silence hang, then guilt took over, and one of the other bridesmaids, Hillary, stood up and said, "I would forgive her. It was a mistake, a one-off stupid mistake, and it would have been a loving, kind, and generous act." Graham looked at Hillary and said, "Are you saying that because you hope your husband will be loving, kind, and generous to you for doing it?" A picture of her with a man who wasn't white appeared on the screen, and two more people walked away screaming loudly. Graham continued after the hype had died down, everyone wondering what he was going to say next. What was going to happen next? Some people wanted to leave, mostly women. But it was obvious that many were intrigued, especially the male wives who wanted to leave. How far would all this go? Graham looked at Kelsey and said, "Do you have anything to say to me?" She looked shocked and scared, but that could have been because her two best friends had just left, and not in the nicest way. She just shook her head. Graham continued, "Let's call a truce here and now. I suppose if someone did something wrong or something they weren't proud of at the Bachelorette party, and if they admit it, there might be a wedding tomorrow. But we may have to find a new chief bridesmaid, and I may have to find a new best man. I'll give everyone 1 minute." He sat down, put his wrist on the table, and looked at his watch. And there was silence. I saw Don lean over to Adam and whisper something in his ear. He smiled and nodded, and they got up to leave. "Why are you leaving so soon? Do you have something to be ashamed of?" shouted Graham. Don turned around, looked directly at Graham, and said, "No." Unlike some people, there was a stunned silence. Adam and Don walked out the door holding hands. Graham stood up. "Most of you think the cameras at the rugby club are fake or don't work, but they don't. They all work, all modern, good resolution. My boss Alan fixed them 4 weeks ago. I have copies of everything that went on in the room that Thursday night. I'll extend the truce for another 15 seconds. Another woman got up and got ready to leave, her husband following her. After that, no one moved from their seats. Graham picked up the remote control from where he'd put it. Last chance. He waited for about 5 seconds, then pointed the remote at the TV. "Oh, and by the way, the outside cameras are working too." The video started playing a clip from outside. It showed Kelsey running across the parking lot to a large camper van and getting into it with a black guy. Julia leaned over to me and said, "That's one of the strippers. I kind of figured it out on my own." Graham quickly rewound the tape, which probably made the swaying van look even worse. He picked up normal speed again, only to see Kelsey getting out of the van. She was heading back to the club but couldn't seem to walk straight. Graham looked down at Kelsey, who was in tears, but I don't think he was addressing only her. "It's probably a good thing you were in too much pain to have sex with me because I bet you didn't use a condom either." Then, screenshots from Kelsey's phone from her, Lisa, and the other women who were at the Bachelorette party begin to appear on the TV screen. "How was your sex with your first black man? Are you looking forward to doing it again?" No, once was enough. But it was so good. Good job everyone was sworn to secrecy, but it could cause trouble if it got out. Don't worry, he'll never find out. And then you can do it again in a couple years. Maybe it's someone else's coupe. Yeah, that could be fun. Then it's something future. Definitely good, but I'm having trouble walking at the moment. After this, Graham won't get anything until the first wedding night. Damn, girl, I've only seen that kind of thing in porno movies. Graham turned to the vicar. "Looks like the wedding's off." Graham walked out, and as he walked past his almost father-in-law and mother-in-law, I heard him say, "Sorry." They just sat there stunned. Graham scrolled through the tape, but there was more to it than what he just showed us. I think the divorce attorneys and marriage counselors around here are going to be very busy. Kelsey sat at the head of the table all alone and cried. Julia took my hand tightly, and we walked home. Epilogue. Our local paper reported that the police and fire department were called to an incident that started as an attempted theft of a van that turned into a robbery. Both victims were reportedly adult entertainers. Police said it was similar to a tourist van theft that went awry when the owner and his friend disturbed the thieves. During the scuffle, something must have gone wrong because the van caught fire. The newspaper suggested, but this has not been confirmed by police or the hospital, that the beating the victim suffered appears to have had an element of revenge as they were badly injured in the genital area. Since both Graham and Adam were employed by me on the day it occurred, it couldn't have been them. Although I did see them at the facility a couple of times during the day, I was shocked to discover that the rear gate was unsecured. What's your opinion about OP? Thanks for joining us in our stories where revenge is served hot. Please consider subscribing to our channel to ensure your next chef remains loyal. Tune in for the next one to get your revenge appetite fulfilled. If you're below 18, hold on, it's not for the faint-hearted.